directors of the program. I'm going to introduce Dustin. This education is strictly what we kind of put out there for you guys. Okay, this is going to be on the market, what's happening right now in the market. I don't know if you guys know this, but literally in an amount of 5 months, everything has shifted and flipped upside down. So we just want to educate you on what's going on out there, how it turned from a seller's market to a buyer's market literally in 2.5 months. Okay, so Dustin's going to go over all that information with you, and then after that we'll have Colleen come up there and talk to you guys about next steps. If you guys are thinking about financial situations, taxes, any other questions that you guys might have, Colleen will be able to answer for you. Okay, so without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce Dustin and we'll get started.
Hey, Dustin. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Pay attention, and guys, if you have any questions also, I don't know, Dustin, if you want to field questions as you go, or just wait till the end, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we keep it. Yeah, if you guys have questions, it's informal,
Just ask,
right?
yeah.
So we're just here to help and help educate. So if you have questions, feel free to just raise your hand as I go. I might be covering it later though, so if it's something I will be covering, I'll just let you know and say, hey, I'll get right to that. But as Aaron,
Where'd you get that jacket?
oh, I got this at Aaron's wedding. Actually, instead of renting, we bought our suits, which almost cost like $30 more than renting. But now I have a suit forever, so it's pretty awesome. I was like, oh, I have a suit. I'm going to wear it today. I'm going to get extra fancy.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. So if another friend gets married, I might move up to 2 suits. We'll see. So I'm Dustin. I'm the other director of the Think Heroes program. I'm more in shape. A little bit stronger than the other directors. So I'm here. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things, right? But the main thing I want to discuss is the market, right? The reason I bring that up is because a lot of stuff's going on right now, right? A lot of people have questions. You have inflation and gas prices and economy and prices have gone up. Everything is going to crash. What's going on? Just a lot of uncertainty. You know, I can find 100 articles out there that says doomsday, 100 articles that say the opposite. So what do we believe? What are we supposed to look at? So that's what I'm going to cover with you guys and break it down pretty simply, right? It's not a complicated thing. A lot of people make it complicated for some reason, but this will hopefully simplify. There's some basic factors you guys should be looking at when you're entering the market or considering buying a home. Those factors haven't changed over time, no matter how crazy things get. There's some basic principles you can just look at and kind of zoom out and figure out where we are and what we're doing in the market. So I'm going to kind of jump into that. So, but first of all, before I jump into that, I'll explain a little bit about why I get so passionate about the market. So that's really, obviously I do a lot of things as a director of this program, but that's the thing I focus on the most. I sit in front of my computer all day and I look at trends, numbers, figures, facts, because I think it's fascinating, right? And I learned that from buying my first house in 2016. So I'll just give you my little story of what got me interested and why I'm here now. So in 2016, I just started real estate. You know, we just started opening up this program, and I was learning everything about it. I really didn't know much about it. I've sold cars and furniture and cell phones, and I was a lifeguard for 12 years, but I didn't really know much about the housing industry. And so Colleen, she's the head of this program. She's our broker, our fearless leader. We call her mom, because she educated, right? And she explained how things work. You know, when I was younger, I remember my parents told me, hey, if you want to learn something or do something, learn it from someone who's done it. It makes sense, right? So rather than, you know, my uncle James who says, no, don't buy, the market's going to crash, you know, every single year, and he's never owned a home, maybe I should listen to someone who has multiple renter properties and an amazing house in La Jolla with an ocean view, all things I want to eventually get to. Maybe that's the person I should talk to than the person who just, oh, don't ever buy, don't trust anything, right? So I sat down with Colleen and we discussed, you know, my goals of where I want to go, what my plans are. So I think she said, what's your dream goal? Where do you want to live? What's your ultimate goal for where you want to live and what you want to do? I said, well, I want to live in Point Loma because that's where I was born and raised. I was a lifeguard for 12 years over there. I need to be next to the ocean. That's my thing. I love the beach. And That's my goal. She said, okay, well, how much is a home, your dream home in Point Loma right now? And this is 2016. I think when I came in here, I don't even have a salary, right? So I had no money, right? And so we looked it up, and it was about, at that time, about $1.5 million to get to my dream home. And she was like, okay, great. Well, are you going to purchase it now or next year? And I was like, well, I don't know. How does that work? She's like, well, you're going to need about $150,000 to $200,000 down. So are you close there? No. How much do you have saved? $2,000, right? I mean, I'm almost there, right? And so, how long do you think it's going to take you to save $200,000? Maybe until I'm 97. I had big issues with saving money, right? And I still do. I'm not a saver. I love to Uber Eats, right? It's amazing. It just comes right to you. It's so cool. I love to go out. I love to travel. I love to see things. I don't like to save money. I can just say that. So I sat there and started finally reality hitting. Okay, I'm not gonna pull this off on my own. I'm not gonna rent my way to Point Loma. And I'm starting like, okay, I see where you're going. She's like, all right, so I can't afford what I want. So how do I get there? All right, tell me, explain, please. So I said, okay, well, start off. You got to figure out what you're pre-approved for now, right? And so we did that. Pre-approved for like $380,000 to $400,000, and this is 2016. So I mean, not as hopeless, right? But it's still pretty low, and that makes sense. I didn't have any money saved. I didn't have a very high-paying job. So she said, okay, well, you're gonna have to buy whatever you can afford, and she's just very direct. I don't care what you're gonna do, just buy it. And so we looked at what I could afford, and one thing that came up was a condo in Chula Vista. Like 2 bedrooms, built straight up, 3 bedrooms, but built straight up, like 3 floors. I had 2 little kids. I had a newborn and a 2-year-old, and they didn't even have rooms on the same floor, and it was horrible. I hated this place. I was downgrading from, I had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo over here, and by right, I can probably see it from here, but right next to work. It was great area, and I had to go 45 minutes away from work in a place I didn't like that was way smaller. And other kickers, I shared a wall with what sounded like 50 people. And I couldn't even have a grill. Now, if you don't know me, that's a big deal. Like, that's might as well, take half my soul. Like, I can't, she's telling me I can't Uber Eats and I can't grill. So what am I gonna maybe I'll at least lose some weight. But that didn't happen, as you can see. But, so I bought it, but I was very upset about it. I didn't want to do it. I didn't like the idea of it. I didn't want to ruin my quality of life I was having, but I finally came to the realization, okay, she knows a lot more than me. So 2 years is not that long. She said, you can live in there, I promise you, don't live in there more than 2 years. You'll be able to sell that and move up to something bigger. And I said, okay, well, I'm gonna listen to someone who's done it. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna sacrifice for 2 years. So I bought this house, and it wasn't great. It wasn't bad either. And we made through, and 2 years went by like that. I didn't even finish unpacking, and it was time to sell. And so I sold that house, and everything. Colleen, she went over this equity chart, which I'm going to go over with you as well. Everything we talked about and inputted happened, and I was able to sell that and take 100% of that equity I had built. And I moved up to a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in El Cajon, but with a yard and a grill. Still far away from the beach, right? It's baby steps. But I saw it first there. I'm like, okay, well now I'm at least comfortable. I'm in El Cajon, it's still hot, but hey, I have a pool now, so I can cool off there. A lot of good things are happening. So now just my first transaction, in 2 years, I went from a house I hated, but the next step was beating out the place I had here, right? So just in one full transaction, I was beating what I had for rent. And it took 2 years to do that. 2 years after owning this home, I sold that, and obviously the market did very well for me, and I was able to take 100% of that profit as a down payment to my next house. I stayed in El Cajon, but this was a house over $1 million. I mean, it was everything I could have ever dreamed of in a house, just not in Point Loma. Right, Point Loma went up, so I'm one more step away from my dream home. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And it took 6 years. I mean, it felt like yesterday. 6 years is not a long time. It goes by pretty quickly. And looking back, the difference in wealth, in quality of living, in income and savings, all of that came from just listening to someone more experienced than me and sacrificing for 2 years, right? And everything changed. Right now, I'm one sell away from my dream home, which would have happened. Come close to that, but I'd be going backwards because rent's got up too, if you haven't noticed, since, not just home values. I'll probably be in a 2-bedroom now. So I'd probably be renting something very similar to what I bought because of how quickly home prices went up, right? So I lived it. Everything I said, I'm teaching you guys now, I've been through it, I've listened to it, I've taken the leaps of faith. Because buying a home, and I talked to thousands of clients over the last 6 years. I mean, every excuse, every reason, everything, right? But buying a home, you guys are all here because you know it's good for you. Most people know owning property is good. I talk about like it's like a diet, right? Going on a diet and being healthy is good for your body, but gosh, when you start it, you think of every reason why, you don't need to do it. Like, I'm going on a trip in 2 weeks, and I need to lose weight for that trip, but I'm busy. I'm just gonna start when I'm off the trip, and I don't want to ruin it. Even I've come up with about 47 reasons why I don't need to eat healthy before this trip, and I believe it, right? Even though my brain actually knows, God, I'm being an idiot, right? Because that being healthy is way better for me. It's just like buying a house. It's scary. It's hard. It's frustrating. I mean, it's like an Oscar-winning movie. You're gonna cry, laugh, be happy, sad. I mean, every emotion, everything, because it's the largest purchase of your life, right? This is you're not gonna go buy a new pair of jeans. You're not even buying a car. This is something that's gonna impact you right away, right? The biggest purchase of your life. But you guys all know, everyone knows, I should probably own a home. A lot of people seem to own homes, and a lot of people seem to do really well with that. But it's scary, so I'm going to talk my way out of this. I've had people tell me, the pricing's going up, so I'm going to wait. Now pricing's going down, so I'm going to wait, right? And interest rates are going up, I'm going to wait. Well, I'm going to wait for interest rates to go down. I mean, I hate to break it to you guys, but something's always going to be happening, right? They're going to go up or down. That's just how it works. And it's just so many different reasons as to why. Now, if you're not pre-approved and there's things you have to work on, that's different. Yeah, now you can get your nose to the grindstone, fix what you need to do. But when you're pre-approved and you just talk yourself out of it, it crushes me, because I've lived what people are giving up. And then the excuses, I don't want to live in this area, or I need somewhere that has a washer or dryer, just the things that are so easily sacrificed get in people's way. And over time, I mean, it just keeps getting harder, right? And harder. So everyone asks, when's the best time to buy a house? Well, if you can go back 5 years, sure, but we haven't invented time travel. So right now, the second you can, there's no point. This waiting game is this myth we make to make ourselves feel comfortable and talk ourselves out of helping us in the long run, just so we can feel comfortable right now. So I'm going to jump into the numbers, right? So this is the first thing we have to look at. Everyone gets really hyper-focused on this second. What's happening right this second in real estate? Should I wait? Should I go now? When's the best time? We got to research it. Prices just went up, so they're going to crash now, so let's wait. It just doesn't work. You need to take a breath, zoom out, and look at historically what home ownership looks like for you over a long period of time. Because when you buy a house, you're not going to own it for 8 months, right? So, most people own it for at least 2 years before you have to move up, right? So let's look at just basic numbers. Zoom out. Okay, 40 in Southern California. So this is Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, all the way down to the border. This is where I pull all my numbers from. Over the last 46 years, home values in Southern California have gone up an average of 5.4% per year over 46 straight years. I did over 40 years because that's significant. When you look at an average over a 40-year average, it's a trend. It's not, we can't predict the future, right? Obviously, there could be nuclear war tomorrow, and no one cares about home values then. But if you look at something as long as 40 years, that's about as close as you can get to guaranteeing your ticket in the future as far as returns. A 40-year average is very, very solid because it encompasses every crash, every bubble, every burst, every down, all of that, right? So that's why I want to look at 40 years. So 5.4% per year over the last 46 years. That's phenomenal. Compare that to the United States, right? So all of the United States, this includes San Diego, LA, San Francisco, New York, right? Over the last 46 years, the average home value in America has gone up 3.44% per year. All right, so we look at the difference. Yes, we know Southern California is expensive, right? It's cost a lot to buy something here. But once you own here, you're gaining equity, at least over the last 46 years, you're gaining equity almost double the speed as the rest of the United States, right? So, I mean, yeah, you pay more, but you're getting double your profit right off the bat, which is phenomenal. Another reason San Diego has such increased, I guess, equity over time is geographic location, right? No one thinks of that. Yes, we're sunny and we're SeaWorld and Disneyland and beaches and tourism, right? It's a great place to live. We're not dealing with, you know, hurricanes or tornadoes or, you know, horrible things like that. But geographically, right, we can't build new construction here like you can in Texas or Tennessee, where you have endless miles of plains, right? We can't build anything to the west because you have Pacific Ocean. We haven't invented ocean pods yet, but that'd be cool. One day I might buy one. We can't go south because you have another country, and we're not allowed to just build property in other countries yet. We can't go east because you got Death Valley, right? And no one wants to live in 138-degree weather. I mean, though people are now because we're really that much out of room. And you go north, you got LA, you got the biggest, you know, city in America. You know, that's a whole different story. So geographically, we're very handicapped. We can't really expand in Southern California. We're trying, but it's spilling over to places like Temecula, Murrieta, or Ramona, just farther places out of San Diego. Then those are reaping the benefits of an impacted San Diego. So if you look up rate of new home builds, I think San Diego is ranked in the very last, or at least the top 5 lowest cities in America. And why is that significant? Well, if we can't build a lot of homes, that's not gonna have a lot of inventory, and that's gonna raise prices, right? That's what we're gonna get into right now, is what actually affects home values. Simplified, very basic economic principles that affect home values. It's not overthinking. Don't worry about what Biden or Trump is saying or doing. It's very simple things. It's supply and demand, right? This is invented back when people were trading rocks. You know, it's the most basic economic principle, and it's the most influential economic principle that's ever existed. So I did the top 6 reasons supply and demand is so important. It gets the top 3 reasons. So it's pretty simple, right? If there's a lot of homes and not a lot of people buying them, well, then values are going to go down. If there's not a lot of homes and a lot of people who want to buy them, values are going to go up. Everything else is really a very distant second, third, fourth place, right? So that's the most important thing. So if you're jumping into a market, check out what supply is and how does that rank historically, and check out where demand is and how does that rank historically. I'll show you guys today what that looks like. The second, again, very distant second, I would call it the fourth most important thing, is going to be interest rates. Okay, and the interest rates go down, people have larger buying power. That means they can afford to buy more home for the same price. When interest rates go up, people have less buying power, they can afford less home for the price. Interest rates are a double-edged sword. Okay, so everyone is sitting here who does not currently own a home, hoping for interest rates to drop is not going to be beneficial. If we go back to November of last year, interest rates were 2.75 to 3%, lowest in American history. Okay, trying to buy a home in November, some of the agents around here could tell you it was near impossible. Near impossible. You're talking 50 offers on one home. The winners usually go in $70,000 to $90,000 over ask just to get it. So when interest rates drop that low, breaking in the market is near impossible. It's not good for buyers. It sounds good. I can buy more home, but talk to our agents and the people, our clients who try to do it. It was impossible. It was close to impossible. I would personally rather buy a $500,000 house at $500,000 with a 5.5% interest rate than at $590 with a 3% interest rate. Right? The only people who win when interest rates drop suddenly like that are homeowners, people who already own the home, because now they can just refinance There's no competition. They lower their payment. They can take equity out, lower their payment, or keep their payment the same and have extra money, right? Those were the people who really won when interest rates dropped. So I talk to clients trying to buy a home, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna wait for interest rates to go back down so I can afford more homes. And then I educate them on how that's really not true. It's not a lie. Right now, interest rates are perfect for entering the housing market, and I'll kind of explain that. Other thing, foreclosures. Okay, foreclosures it's more of a signal, like a flag, as showing the direction of which the market's going. When there's foreclosures are very low, it's showing that the market's very healthy. People are staying in their homes. People are affording their homes. When foreclosures rise, it's usually a telltale sign of something else going on. Why are people losing their homes? Why are people not able to afford it? What's going on? So that then you kind of gives you a reason why you should dig deeper. Why are foreclosures going up? And then you start uncovering reasons that tell you where the market's going. And then lastly, I call it, this is 2008. Once in a generation financial collapse caused by fraud, greed, and stupidity. I have to mention it because if I have $1 for every time someone told me 2008 is going to happen again right now, I'd probably be able to buy a couple Uber Eats. So let's look at 2008. First, you have to understand what happened in 2008. Everyone holds on to it like it's something that happens every 10 years. It's once in a generation. The first time in our history of America that's happened, right? But basically, banks, lending institutions got completely fraudulent. They went nuts, right? Anyone could buy a home. Didn't matter what your credit score was. Didn't matter what your income was. You can say, hey, I make $1 million a year, and I have great credit. And the bank was like, okay, cool. You want to buy a $2 million house? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Oh, how much could you afford? Oh, $1,000 a month. No worries. You're in there for $1,000 a month, and then in 12 months, yeah, there'll be a slight change, but don't worry, you can refinance, right? So everyone's like, all right, high five. The banks took a ton of money. The person walked into their $2 million house for a $1,000 payment. Everyone was happy. Then reality hit, literally in one day, right? People's payments went from $1,000 to $9,000. It was a lie. You couldn't refinance. Credit did matter, and the whole it collapsed literally overnight. And the crazy part is, why the prices dropped so much? Well, how long did lending stop, Colleen?
Oh, it was completely dead stop. No funding for about 3.5 weeks, something like that.
None. That means no one could buy a house for almost a month, maybe longer, unless you had all cash. So what does that do for supply and demand? Now, if you want to sell your house, your only option is someone with all cash. And guess what? The person with all cash knows that. So we just had a history of uber lowballing for several months, which caused the market to crash because there was no buyers, because the government didn't allow people to buy. The government said, nope, we're not buying until we fix this problem. So when you have no demand, zero demand, and all supply, you're gonna get a massive crash of value. So what happened is the government stepped in. They did create a lot of laws, a lot of rules. Now people are held responsible. People can finally go to jail. I mean, when people stole billions of dollars and no one went to jail, you believe that? It's like ultimate heist movie. And all these people trying to steal Ocean's 11 in Vegas, they could have just worked for the banks. So if you look at crashes, and everyone always says crash. There's been 2 crashes in the last 100 years. And you got the 1932 Great Depression, and you have 2008. So, I mean, historically, that's once in a generation, right? It's not something that just comes because we think it's coming or we want it to. There has to be a reason and a motive behind it. And right now, none of that's there. None of that. Just because prices skyrocketed recently doesn't mean it was a crash. There's a correction, and there's a big difference between a crash and a correction, which I'll explain. But let's just jump into a little bit of history. This is also important to understand why the market did what it did. So everyone needs to go back to 2008, right? 2018. That is the last time we had a normal market, all right? The last time before COVID hit. COVID changed everything. So 2018 was utopia. We were traveling, we were gathering, we were going to concerts, and movies were cool still. So let's look at what the market did. So in southern San Diego specifically, there was about 4,500 homes on average. that was our inventory. So if you pull up an MLS and you just search all available properties in San Diego, it would probably be around the 4,500 mark, give or take a little bit for that year. Interest rates in 2018 was 5.5%, right? So we had to hit 5.5% this year. It's dropped a little bit, so we have a good window. I think it's around 4.5-ish.
4.75.
4.75. So wow, so okay, not bad. But the average interest rate for 2018 was 5.5%. Home values in San Diego went up 7.1%. So a little bit above that 40-year average. That's what everything was great. That's a super strong housing market. And that's a good benchmark. So we want to kind of take that benchmark and overlay it of what we're looking at today to give us an idea of where the market's going. But first, let me explain what COVID did, because there's going to be a movie about it one day. Why didn't the housing market crash? Everyone thought once COVID hit and people are going to start losing their jobs. Every article I read, oh, here comes the crash. Everyone's going to get kicked out of their jobs. No one's going to afford their homes. Or 2008 all over again, even though it's a completely different reason, right? 2008 was a financial crisis. This is a health crisis. Different things. So it didn't crash. Why didn't it crash right away? Well, most of these experts, they didn't take into account equity. 96% of people who owned a home in California had equity, right? So if you owe $500,000 on a house, but if it's worth $600,000, why are you going to foreclose? Worst case scenario, you'll sell that house, you'll take your $100,000, go rent, and figure your life out. But no one's ever going to foreclose on a home they have equity in, right? You need to be upside down in a home for that to take place. So there was no foreclosures because everyone had equity. The second thing that come in is forbearance. So the government stepped up and said, oh my gosh, I'm worried that all these people are going to lose their houses. So we're going to grant them forbearance until this COVID thing's under control and everyone gets back on their feet. Forbearance means you can go up to 18 months without making your mortgage payment. It's not going to affect your credit or your payment history, right? So all the new letters and articles started coming out saying this is going to cause the crash because the American public does not understand how forbearance works. And they have a point, because forbearance is not a free pass, all right? Let's say you go 18 months, you don't make a payment, great. That 18 months is over, your mortgage starts again, and you owe every payment you missed all in one lump sum. So yeah, my payment's back, and now I owe 40 grand. Like, so that's gonna cause everyone's gonna finally give up, and now they're gonna have to foreclose, because that's gonna push people upside down, right? That's what everyone thought. However, in the meantime, the government out there trying to save the economy lowered interest rates for banks to 0%, really, and that in turn caused mortgage rates to fall to 2.75, 3% range, right? So this is just nuts, all right? Listen, this is what happened. People went 18 months in their house they own without making a payment. Then forbearance comes, their big bill hits, and all of a sudden they look and they say, oh my gosh, the interest rate's 2.75%. I'm just gonna refinance. So now that 40 grand vanishes and my payment gets lower, right? I mean, that's the deal of a century. Imagine buying a house, living in it for free for 18 months, and then after your 18 months, your reward is a lower payment. I mean, that's what happened to millions of people. It's insanity. So when you have that type of deal, no one's gonna sell. Why would you sell your house if you can live in it for free, gain equity, and get a lower payment at the end? It's the deal of a lifetime. So that led to an absolute crisis of inventory. Okay, inventory in November last year, you remember that 45 to 4,600 number, that's our sweet spot, hit 1,300 in San Diego. I mean, if you told me in 2018 inventory would hit 1,300, I would have bet my life savings you were wrong. I mean, how is that possible? Well, that's how it's possible. You give everyone free mortgage for 18 months and then lower their payment, no one's gonna sell. So inventory dipped to all-time lows at the same time as interest rates dipping to all-time lows. So the whole world was like, oh my gosh, let me try to buy a house at 3%, but there's no inventory, so the market crashed, but it went crash straight up, right? Normal, healthy San Diego is 5 to 7% per year. We had a 15% year and a 20% year because of that inventory. So that's why prices went up so much, because we saw the lowest inventory in history with the best buying time in history. It was the perfect storm for home values to crash up. So let's fast forward to today, right? Let's look at what the market's kind of finally doing. And it's good news if you want to buy a house. So let's look at supply right now. So 2017, 2018, 45, 4,600, anywhere between 4,000 and 4,800 is probably the norm, right? Then 2021 hit 1,300s, and as of just yesterday, I think, we were at 4,635. Okay, so supply is finally back. Thank God, because we needed it. We needed this. You can buy a house now. Yay, right? So, our agents are super excited, but everyone's so scared of the last year that everyone's just decided not to to take a break. I don't get it. It's finally time. You guys we have a reprieve here. We have a window. Look, and even rates lowered back down to 4.25, right, or 3/4. So, supply is our friend. If you guys don't know, if you guys start looking for a home, supply means you're gonna have options, right? You're not gonna be forced to buy the only home that's available, like me. The home you hate. You may have options. Maybe you can get something you like now. You have negotiation power finally, right? You need. Our program helps with closing costs, but maybe closing costs are extra high because of taxes or something. You can negotiate sellers to finally closing cost credit. We just had an escrow accepted yesterday with a $15,000 credit from the seller to the buyer towards closing costs. So now they're able to not pay anything out of their pocket other than their down payment, and they're able to use an extra $5,000 of that and lower their interest rate. Right, and they were able to pick the house they liked because they had, only one other person they were competing against. So it's a big deal, right? Inventory is always a buyer's friend because it gives you leverage and it gives you negotiating power. If you try and buy a house in 2013, in November of last year, we were like, oh, let's go 90K above ask, and we're gonna have to give up all our contingencies and all our rights, and they basically can, here's my firstborn son, and I still didn't get it. My son wasn't even good enough. They didn't want to take him. So that's what supply is looking at right now. Supply is normal, right? It's not too high. It's pretty much the average we've seen before COVID hit. So that's back to normal. Demand, okay, this is important. So even if there's finally all these homes, if there's still demand out there, it's not going to lead to this crash everyone's thinking. And we have to look as it starts with millennial. The millennial generation, I think it's ages 40 to like 24. I think I'm the first millennial. I'm pretty sure I was born the day the millennial generation started. Right? So I represent all millennials. If I die, they're all gone. The reason that's important is because they're entering the market, right? So millennials are getting married, they're having kids, they're becoming adults, they're doing adult things, and one of the things adults like to do is buy a property, own a house. That's part of, everyone considers their normal rotation in life, I guess. The reason that's significant is millennials are the largest population, numbers-wise, in the history of America. Okay? So there are more millennials on this planet than anyone else in the world. And they're all, 50% of them are buying. 50% of home buyers are millennials. So when you look at demand, the previous biggest generation was baby boomers at 70.4 million, right? So millennials got them beat by 3 million or so. And if you look back when the baby boomers were entering the market, 70s, 80s time frame, we saw another big jump in home values because of that demand was at all-time high. Well, now we have a bigger demand, right? I mean, if you guys don't know how population works, it tends to keep getting bigger. That means we're gonna need more places to stay, right? So that's why real estate is so valuable. The earth, we're not getting smaller, we're getting bigger. People need more places to live, and soon, even those deserts are gonna be completely populated because we gotta live somewhere. So that's important. Demand, record high, right? So that's one of the factors we look at. Demand is gonna stay record high because the millennial generation is the largest in history. And when you have a population that big, that gives more range of affordability. Because people say, well, home values are eventually gonna hit such high affordability issues that even the millennials won't be able to afford them. Yeah, eventually, but if there's that many buyers, that affordability gets moved up, right? If 20% of baby boomers were making $300,000 a year, and 20% of millennials are making $300,000 a year, that 20% is a lot bigger. Does that make sense? So there's a lot more people in that home buying range to keep the appreciation going. So the big thing we need to look, demand is going to stay at all-time high for a while because this population is so big and it's just getting started. I'm the first one, so there's a lot of people behind me that are going to be joining this train. And millennials too start things a little later than historic starts, right? Baby boomers probably started at 18 because then you're going to take care of everything back then at 18 when you're an adult. Now millennials are, I think they're taking their time, right? They're not jumping out and into the world right away. I mean, I think something I read about 30%, 40% of millennials staying with their parents until their 30s even. But so this is going to be a delayed trickle effect. If they're going to take a long time, this demand's going to stay there for a while because it's a big gap generation. Rates. Okay, now let's look where rates are right now. 3 1/4 or 3 3/4. 4 1/4. 4 1/4.
Excuse me.
4.75.
Right.
Okay, that's where about they're averaging right now. Okay, historically, that's phenomenal. Okay, this is interest rates since the 60s. Look at the people in the 80s, right? Our parents they were buying at 18% interest rate. Colleen, what was the interest rate on your first home?
24.
24%.
Yep. And that's
Right.
when I bought 82.
She had, and she'll probably tell the story, but she had 100 people tell her no. That's the stupidest decision in her life. And one person tell her yes, her father, right? And did that 24% work out? Did that benefit you?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
3.5 years, we literally doubled the price of the property, moved into a gorgeous home, and cut our mortgage in half. So it was great.
So even at 18%, don't feel, if they still own the home they bought, then they're all millionaires. Don't feel sorry for them, right? Because they, but if you look down, it trended down, and then we saw our record low here. That was at 2.753%, and we got back up to 2018 normal. So now we're a little bit lower, probably right here now on this chart. But if you look historically, 4.75 is phenomenal. And when people are like, I want to wait for rates to go down, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a phenomenal rate. It should only go up. In fact, the Fed has said they're going to be increasing rates. Probably September 21st, I think, is their next big meeting. And it's basically just talking about how much they're going to increase it, right? Because they have to. There is some inflation going on. They're doing a lot better than people thought. It's actually, we're overcoming inflation pretty decent right now, despite what everyone thinks. But they're going to do another push in September. And now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to affect mortgage rates, right? This is how much it costs the banks to borrow money, like overnight and things like that. But it usually does have some spillover into mortgage rates. So, but historically, 4.25 is amazing. Yes, I know that 3% was so recent in our memory, but we can't dwell in the past in real estate. You just can't. You look at now, and 4.25 historically is great. And I tell people, Amazon stock, used to be $1. So are we going to wait for it to hit $1 to invest in? No, they're a great company. Why would you wait for some magical number that's probably never going to come again? Now, if you do buy a house at this 4.75 and it does drop, well, great. You can take advantage of it without the competition and just refinance and lower your payment. And you don't have to, compete against 17 other refinancers and give the best deal for the bank to accept it. Right? So get in the house and then you can take advantage of the interest rates. Don't try to do interest rate first. It doesn't work very well. And then foreclosure rates. Where are they looking at now? Well, that kind of tells you everything you need to know. 2021 was the historic low in history for foreclosure rates. So despite COVID, despite all the craziness, 1.11%. That's, what is that, like 4,500 homes? That's like one foreclosure, right? So it's pretty strong, right? Foreclosures are about as good as they possibly get. So where does that take us now, right? Was the market going to crash? This is that 1 year average price went up 20%. That was the 2021. So we're looking at that right now. So let's look right now. Right now, our inventory is normal. Our demand is all-time high. Our interest rates are good. Our foreclosures are all-time low. So the market crashing, I don't see why would it be crashing? There's still plenty of people trying to buy homes. There's still a decent amount of inventory. There's no foreclosures. Interest rates are great. I mean, there's nothing going on. It's that simple, guys. It's that simple. It's not, I mean, inflation, sure, inflation's happening, but look in the history. And when there's 70s, we had a huge inflation rate. Compare that to what home values did. It didn't really impact it. Inflation and home values, they're not married. They're not going hand in hand. I mean, owning a home, you know, where you live, it's mandatory. We all need to live somewhere, right? Just like gas, $7 a gallon. You know, yes, we can complain, but I'm at the pump going to work, right? It doesn't matter. I gotta get to work. So I mean, yeah, we can complain about high prices being high, but we gotta go home and sleep somewhere, right? So we're gonna make sacrifices and buy real estate or rent real estate. Either way, that's not an option, right? We're not living on. We can't really live on the streets, or some people, you know, I guess they pick that. But and then what's correction? So that's what we're leading to, right? What's the difference between a correction and a crash? So correction basically just means things going back to what they should have been, right? Because we saw that huge crash. We saw why prices crashed up, because there was no inventory, right? And there was record demand, record interest rates. So what does that mean, correcting? So we just saw 2018 went up 7%, right? Remember 2018? Home values went up 7%. That was with normal inventory at the 4,500 range. That was with higher interest rates, 5.5%. That was with the millennial generation in there, right? So if we were to take out COVID, let's say COVID never happened. Let's look at what do you think home values would have done? Well, if it was on that trajectory, we would say about 7% per year, right? So it should have gone 7%, 7%, 7% over those 3 years. Instead, it went 7%, 15%, 20%, right? So what does a correction look like? Well, it's basically you just kind of do the math and say, okay, well, if it had gone 7%, where does that put us now? That's where we should be. And let's just play with it. I like to do the math numbers. Let's just do them right now. Let's check it out, because it's fun to learn this together. So 3 years ago, these are the average home values in California. All right, so we want to go back 3 years. April, well, no, where we were, August, right? All right, so we got 617,000. I'm just gonna keep it, I mean, don't worry about the 410. And then we fast forward to July. August hasn't popped up yet, so 833. So let's get our calculator out. All right, so home values are now 833, and they've gone up, and they were 617, right? So the average home value in California in 3 years went up $216,000. Okay, so now let's take that, divide that by the 833. That's 25%. So home values went up 25% during those 3 years. Now let's look and we know the big jump was because of that housing shortage and COVID, right? So 25%, someone remember that for me. All right, now we look at what it should have done. Let's say COVID didn't happen. Let's assume it just did what it was doing at 7%. So you got 617, right? And then let's just add plus 7%. All right, there's 1 year, then plus 7%. There's 2 years, and then plus 7%. There's 3 years, so 755. Okay, and there is where we should be, right? And the number right now is 833. So we're gonna let's see how this works here. So we're gonna take 755. We gotta remember that. So we're gonna take 833 minus 755. This is math makes me very uncomfortable. Okay. All right, we got 78,000. So we times that, or we divide that by that 833, 9%. So home values should correct to about a 9% drop, right? That's about it, because there is no other underlying issues going on out there to cause a further collapse, right? So, and we're seeing that right now, right? We're seeing that. I mean, the agents here, there's plenty of homes out there that are now reducing prices by 30, 40, 25 grand. Obviously, it depends on how much the home value is. But if you see something that's gave us, that's gone down 9%, that's about right where we need to be. And right now it's possible. There are homes you can buy right now for 9% less than it was in November. Easy. And once people start getting on board, because right now we're in this clash. Sellers think, oh, my home's still worth November, right? And buyers are like, no, it's not, right? And then they're like, yeah, it is. No, it's not. And everyone's sitting there, and everyone's just just staring at each other on the sidelines right now. Eventually, the selling side has to pop because people, they have to sell. They need money. They move. Things have to happen. And these buyers are finally going to jump back in once it corrects, and we're going to see normal 6, 5, 7% coming again. This 9% correction is literally happening this second, right? I mean, every day I see it. So it's a great time to buy because you can get that 9%. You can negotiate it right now. You can get those closing cost credit, and you have inventory finally, right? Not like me, where I was forced to buy the no barbecue. You might be able to get a barbecue. So that's that number. 9% is where I think. Obviously, I could be dead wrong. Right? I'm not. I can't see the future, but mathematically and statistically, all that makes sense, right? That's what it matches up to. That's what a correction is. Going back to where we should be. A crash is, just bottom rug out. No one's buying. That's the other thing. When crashes hit, you probably can't buy a house, guys. It's not like unless you have all cash. So when people are telling me I'm going to wait for a crash, I tell them, hey, it's very difficult to finance a house after a major crash that you think is occurring. Because historically, look at the big crashes and look how hard difficult it was until things recovered. So that's what I have there. I'll close this back up. Let's put this puppy back in. So what if rates go up? I'm going to show you guys exactly what equity looks like for you next. I'm going to pull up that equity calculator that Colleen did with me. I'm going to put in values, and I'm going to let you see what home ownership actually does. And this is the fun. This is the part you're like, oh crap, right? I wish someone showed this to me when I was 25, and I would have bought a house instead of a BMW, and I would have been a lot better off right now because I promise you the BMW did not appreciate in value. But I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna do prices, I'm gonna give you guys analysts, and you're gonna see the profit. That's the biggest part. No one looks, everyone when they're like, I'm gonna buy a home, and when they say, what's my mortgage payment? They don't mentally think, they think of that like a rent payment, right? It's completely different. Mortgage payment is an asset. A rent payment is a liability. Rent is 100% interest. None of that comes back. When you pay your mortgage, it does stuff for you, and you can see it. But no one looks at that. They just go, oh, my mortgage, I'm renting for $2,000 a month, and if they told me if I want to buy it, it'd be $2,500, and I can't afford that. Well, you can because if someone said, hey, you give me $2,500 a month, and I'll give you $3,000 back. Would you figure out a way to make that happen? Absolutely. I don't care if I have to borrow money. But now I'm positive though, right? That's what owning a home does. I'm going to show you that real quick. It's the last part, but we'll just take a little 5-minute break. You guys can grab some food or drink or go to the bathroom real quick. We're just going to do a quick break. Then I'll do the equity part. This is what our equity calculator looks like. This is where you see the money, right? So this is the fun part. This is where you see the money actually work for you and what it does. So if this doesn't motivate you to buy a house, then you don't like money, I guess, which is fine. But you have to see this up front before you just make that decision. And I'll go over this in a second. So let's just do a quick 5-minute break, grab some drinks, and we'll be back. I'll go over this, and then we can take questions and give away a TV.